Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and for joining us for this evening's reflections. These are part of the activities of our Center for Spiritist Studies, Camille Flammarion, near Kafla, here in Brussels. And my name is Karen. So warm welcome to all of you, and especially for those who are joining us for the first time today. I hope you're all keeping well and in good health. And I'd just like to introduce shortly this evening's topic, finding hope in the midst of struggle. I believe that most of us, if not all, have struggled in one way or another in our lives, and all of us may face challenging, difficult, or painful situations at any moment. And the purpose of the reflections of this evening is to see a bit how the Spiritist teachings can help us to understand the reason for suffering, why do we suffer, the purpose of all this, and also what those teachings offer us to mitigate the way we experience our struggles. But before starting, I would like to shortly introduce our group. To those of you who don't know our activities at this moment yet, and I try to increase the slide for that. So you can see that better. So we, due to the well-known situation, we are continuing to hold our public talks online, both on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. So we have them in French on Monday evenings, 7 p.m. In Portuguese as well, on Saturdays at 5 p.m. and in English, as we're having them now, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. So these are regular talks that we hold every week. And just as a sneak preview, next week we will have a guest speaker for our English talk. And at the end of today's reflections, I will pass on some more details. Just one very important point, we do continue with our fraternal conversation or fraternal assistance, which means that you can, if you need to talk about any issue that you struggle with, be it on a spiritual level or any other type of issue, you can always contact us on these ways that we've shown here, either by email, info@neekafla.be, via Facebook Messenger on neekafla.asbl, or via WhatsApp on the 0492 859 981. And through these ways of contacting us, then book an appointment and we will talk to you, listen to you, especially listen to you, and see how we can best help you. Okay, so before we start with the actual reflections, I would like to invite you for our initial prayer. And in order to help everyone concentrate, I would like to share a photo of last Sunday's afternoon sky, just to show one more aspect of the beauty of God, of the beauty of nature that surrounds us. So let's calm down a bit and leave all our worries outside and concentrate on this moment that we can connect, that we can spend together reflecting a bit about the situations we are in, about the questions that may be connected to our struggles, and see where we can find hope and help in going through them. And to that we ask our mentors and God for inspiration, for their blessings and guidance. So be it. Now, oops, excuse me, I'm trying to find my way back. Starting with the talk, I hope this has worked now. Okay, so the reflections are based on one of the main books, or the basic books of the Spiritist philosophy, which is the Gospel according to Spiritism. And in chapter 6, item 4, which is called The Promised Consoler, Allan Kardec reflects about this issue. Because he says, Christ said, "Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be comforted." But how can we bless suffering if we do not know why we suffer? And that's exactly the point that I would like to focus on first. Why do we suffer? Is there a way to understand it logically? And Allan Kardec continues in the same item here. Spiritism shows that the cause of our suffering lies in previous existences and in the destiny of the earth where humans expiate their past. It shows them the purpose of their sufferings as being salutary crises, which lead to healing and which are the purification that engenders happiness in future existences. I think that's really worth meditating a bit about. So the purpose of our sufferings being salutary crises that lead to healing and which are the purification that engender happiness in future existences. We will find much more details about these questions in the previous chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism in chapter 5. And this is a very comprehensive chapter, lots of information. And I would just like to focus on a few items in there, because it would be way too much in order to present it all here this evening, but just for us to try and understand a bit better why we do struggle. So Allan Kardec, who codified the Spiritist teachings, he was an educator and a scientist of the 19th century, and he considered the earthly afflictions, our struggles, in a very logical and methodical way, and answering the related questions really step by step, based on the teachings that he received by high order spirits. So these are not his own ideas, but he's just bringing those teachings into an order that helps us to understand life a bit better. So he asked questions like, why do some suffer more than others? A question I think that most of us have asked themselves. Why are some born into poverty and some into opulence without having done anything that seems to justify such a difference, right? Because he also reminds us that if we believe in God, if one believes in God, and I can quote from here, if we believe in God, we cannot conceive of God apart from infinite perfection. God must be all-powerful, wholly just, and wholly good. Otherwise, God would not be God. And if God is supremely good and just, then God can neither act capriciously nor with partiality. Therefore, the vicissitudes of life have a cause, and since God is just, that cause must also be just. Which sounds really logical, and this is, I think, one of the main questions that all philosophies have focused on. How can we bring the different types of suffering in balance with the existence of a just God, right? And this is really what Allan Kardec explains us in detail. So he is focusing on the cause. The vicissitudes of life have a cause, and since God is just, that cause must also be just. He then continues distinguishing between the types of causes of our afflictions, and he distinguishes between the two different types, which are the current causes of afflictions. So afflictions caused in this current lifetime. And hi, good evening, Bispo. Good to see you here. Happy that you joined. And then on the other hand, he explains us about prior causes of afflictions, which means causes that lie in previous existences, not in this incarnation. And he starts with the current causes of afflictions. So where he explains, on searching for the source of earthly misfortunes, it will be realized that many are the natural consequence of the character and behavior of those who bear them. And he gives examples for that. So how many of us fail due to our own fault? How many are victims of their own imprudence, pride, and ambition? How many ruin themselves for lack of discipline or perseverance, for wrong conduct? How many disagreements and quarrels could have been avoided with more moderation on both sides? How many ills and infirmities are the consequence of intemperance and excesses of all kinds? And these are just a few examples. Allan Kardec really says if we calmly examine our conscience, often we will really find the cause of our sufferings in this life. And he concludes that a good part of our sufferings is really have their origin in this lifetime, just because we had not been disciplined enough really to avoid them. And he explains that we need to work on our moral and our intellectual improvement to improve this situation based on those causes. And he explains it further. So why would we suffer then at all? He reminds us that God wishes the progress of all creatures. And progress, as we learn in the Spiritist philosophy, is a law, a universal law. Everything progresses. And so are we as immortal spirits meant to progress. And any departure from God's laws or from the moral path, if we like, will be corrected that way. So, and also as we learn here, no matter how small a wrongdoing may be, any infraction of the divine law will have unavoidable consequences, which has the intention really to teach us to do better next time and to progress really. And this is ultimately the purpose of our incarnation, to reach or to get a bit closer, a step closer to perfection. One day, all of us will reach this state, and this happens through this learning process that we're going through in all of our incarnations. Then, in a next step, Allan Kardec focuses then on afflictions that cannot be explained by our actions in this current life, as these are examples that I quoted before. So examples that he gives, but which cannot be explained easily, is like the loss of loved ones, like family breadwinners that leave then the family really in a difficult situation. He names accidents that no foresight could have prevented, and natural disasters. Someone born with physical or mental limitations, children who die at a very young age. So how can these situations be explained? Certainly not by a mistake that someone so young could have done. And as he explains it to us in this text of the Gospel, in virtue of the axiom that every effect has a cause, such miseries as the examples that I just named are effects that must have a cause. And if one believes in a just God, then that cause must also be just. Consequently, since the cause always precedes the effect, and since the cause in this case cannot be found in the present life, then it must be prior to this life. That is, it belongs to a previous existence. And he explains a bit further. So humans are not always fully punished in their current existence for mistakes we commit, but they can never escape the consequences of their wrongs due to the law of progress, as we learned before. So really, sufferings due to prior causes are frequently the natural consequence of wrongs that were committed previously. And he explains it further. Through justice that is strictly meted out, humans bear what they made others bear in previous existences. And he gives examples on that as well. For example, if someone was hard and inhumane, then in the next existence we might be treated harshly and inhumanely. If someone was proud, then they might be born into humiliating conditions in order to learn to overcome pride. If someone was selfish, for example, if they made bad use of their wealth, then they might be deprived of necessities, and so on. He really explains that through the plurality of existences, one can explain what we call these anomalies, because we really can understand that every difficulty that we see has a cause, and it is only in appearance an anomaly because we cannot really see that cause. We cannot look back. We cannot see don't even know. In most of the cases, we don't even know our own past, our own previous existences, of what we went doing there, and nor do we know it for others. But basically, looking back in human history, we see that it was not always sunshine and moral behavior, obviously, but I think many of us still have a lot to learn, and this is why we're here. So this is our chance to progress, to take one more step on this path of progress. Later on, Allan Kardec in this chapter also explains the mechanics of how the types of affliction and trials for one incarnation have been planned before we incarnated. He doesn't only explain it here, we find it also in the Spirit's book, this information, and also, for example, in the Genesis. All three books are basic books of the Spirit's teachings, where we find detailed information. And once we are back in the spiritual world, when we leave this material body behind, we have the bigger picture, and we understand our actual situation as an immortal spirit. We look back and see how we did in that lifetime, what went well and what went not so well, and especially if we had done something wrong, if we had harmed someone, in most of the cases we will repent ourselves and ask for a chance to repair. We ask for a chance to reconcile. We ask for a chance to learn the necessary lessons, and very often it is us who ask for those struggles that we're going through, the type of sufferings. But as we're also aware, we do not really remember that situation. Once we are incarnate, we forget our past, and well, we were born into this life with the best of intentions, and now we face our struggles and need to find a way to go through them with the best way we can, and in good faith. And this is why we're trying to understand this a bit better. So we usually have asked for our difficult situations, also because, as Allan Kardec explains, a spirit cannot aspire to perfect happiness as long as they are impure. So we need to overcome all our difficulties. And it is, as he further explains, through our many corporeal existences that spirits rid themselves little by little of their imperfections. Of course, it takes time, and it's not easy to say from now on, I will not be proud anymore. Of course, we know it's a learning process, but through the different difficulties that we go through every now and then, they help us to learn what we need to learn. And then comes something very important in all this chapter about our afflictions, our struggles. What is also important is the way we accept them, if we accept them at all. So he says, Allan Kardec explains, the trials of life enable advancement when well accepted. As expiations, they erase wrongs and purify, and they are the medicine that cleanses the sores and heal the patient. This is what we heard at the very beginning. Our trials are the medicine that cleanses the sores and heals the patients, if well accepted. And he goes on further down. It depends on us through resignation to make such suffering profitable and not to waste the fruit by complaining. Without resignation, they will have to start all over again. I think this is a very important point. And we have to really underline that or highlight the importance of us accepting our trials, because it will be much more difficult for us to bear our struggles if we keep complaining about them, if we compare ourselves to others, if we blame someone else for what we're going through. Reflecting a bit about this, and I know this cannot happen because you've heard me talking about it once, it really needs some study for us in order to internalize that and really reflect that about this situation, that we're actually living the consequences of our former actions and our former behavior. And it takes all grounds from us comparing our situation to the one of someone else, if you think about it. Because if we all have our history as immortal spirits, a very long history with many incarnations that we've been through already, so have the others with completely different stories, most of them. And everyone has their own needs to learn what we still need to learn to progress. We all of us have our debts that we have to make up for, and so on. So we can't there is no way to compare or to say if someone has it easier or not. Every one of us is in the exact situation that we need for our progress right now. So we can be sure of that. There's no need to compare ourselves to others and also to blame others. But I'm aware that when we're talking about struggles, about sufferings, about our fate, many situations may be extremely difficult and often very painful. But this is also, this is the main point why we're studying this topic and why we're also trying to share it with others, to see if these very logical explanations and studies can help others as well. And if you see our challenges, our afflictions in the light of these teachings, or from the point of view as an immortal spirit that goes through many incarnations, it may be easier for us to go through our struggles, to accept them, and also to learn from them, to grow spiritually. Basically, what we can summarize when we talk about the Spiritist teachings, it's a faith. They provide a faith which is based on reason, or they offer a faith. Of course, this cannot be prescribed. Everyone has to find that out for themselves if those teachings make sense to you. For me, they make sense, and they help me a lot. Also, with the point of view to accept those things that we cannot change in our lives. When we talk about this current situation that we are going through on our planet, which is the moment of a planetary transition, as we've studied earlier, and there's also a talk available that Bispo held earlier, so it's still stored on our YouTube channel, so you can learn more about those questions. There's one message that I would like to quote from by a high order spirit called Mirames, and this was he sent this message in May 2010 and referred to this moment and described our situation the following way. We know that the moment is difficult on the planet itself, but we also know that you do not find yourselves reincarnated at this time of transition by an accident of nature. Everything is in accordance with your necessities of evolution. And in another message of 2011, he also refers to it in a similar way, where he says, pacify your heart as the moment is of pain in the planetary house. The collective personality requires changes, and the time has come. There are no victims. What does exist are readjustment, redemption, and trial. To accept what we cannot change is a wise decision by the spirit forged over time and tired of suffering. Don't fear anything. There's not one single leaf falling off a tree without it being God's will. And I think this is something that we need to remind ourselves of over and over again. And even after having studied Spiritist teachings for a very long time, I believe for many of us it is still not easy to remember these truths. And it's a very well-known phrase. I think there's not one leaf falling off a tree without being God's will. Remembering that when we are in a difficult situation. But this is why we're studying, and this is why we're not studying only on our own, but exchanging about this, because it does require a very continuous effort, a very conscious effort to try and look at life from that point of view, and therefore really need to study in order to internalize this, and find it then easier to walk through life and remind ourselves every now and then of our condition as an immortal spirit, which brings everything in a bit of a different perspective, and what I believe is it helps us to overcome our challenges, the challenges that we need to go through, and the struggles that we might find ourselves in. So one other aspect that I'd also like to mention in this regard is that we're also aware when we study that when we're talking about the law of action and reaction and us going through the consequences of our former actions, so this is what we're finding now, at the same time we are preparing our future within this law of action and reaction. Therefore, it is so important to try and overcome our imperfections step by step, and to do really the best we can, and try to pay attention to our thoughts, to our emotions, to our actions, to our words, in order to prepare a future that is a bit better, if we can call it like that, than the moment we are facing now. So it is, I believe it is really very important to nourish our faith, and the Spiritist teachings and all the literature connected offer us an immense treasure to develop our faith, really based on logical explanations. And that's why I'm so grateful for having the opportunity of studying it. And would like to invite everyone who's interested in joining us studying. Bonsoir, Alice, good to see you. And we will have more structured study courses in our group when we're talking about studies starting from next year. I would like to mention them. Hi, Dani, already now. So for those of you who speak French, we will start a structured course, study course in February next year, and you will find information on our website about this, nekafla.be. And if we consider that we are immortal spirits, it might be really a good idea to study a bit more about this and to try and understand a bit more why we're here, and getting some help on this pathway. And also this study course, it's a systematic study of the Spiritist teachings. It will also be offered in Portuguese. And this course starts in January already. So yeah, information on our website. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, for for your comments. That's very, very kind. And also, I'd like to, as I promised before, now tell you who will be our guest speaker next week. This will be our friend Ingo Meyer from Munich, a spiritist group there, which is called Weg der Nächstenliebe, the pathway of charity. And he will talk about our journey into the light. So a much more comprehensive way than I talked about today with a few to struggles, but he will have a whole overview. So it's a really good opportunity to learn more about our journey into the light. Next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Please stay tuned. And finalizing, I would like to invite you to our final prayer. And for that, I would like to go back to this beautiful image again. So thanking all of you for your patience, for joining us this evening. Let us also thank for this moment of studying together. And ask God to spread this energy of peace, of harmony, wherever it may go, especially helping all those who are suffering, who are going through difficult situations at this moment. May they find hope in their hearts, and may they receive the help that is possible. So be it. So, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And as I said, next week, Ingo will join us with a very interesting talk. So, hope to see you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.